the light is flashing. We're recording to the cloud. This is SOLVETank style. This is SaaSOps live virtual event where, and a SOLVETank version. This is actually number 13, episode 13. We've had 13 vendors on to come and give us a demo of their product. And then my brain's gone dead for a second. I'll have to edit that out. And then we, the audience of seasoned SaaSOps professionals, ask some probing and deep questions and then give our feedback. So today we have Rome from Ziplyne. Ziplyne is I would think it's a different kind of SaaS application that we've had on from previously. This is a digital adoption platform built for real-time engagement and long-term retention. That's what the tagline says. Let's see if that's true. I'll pass it over to Rome for introduction and demo.
Thank you, Colin. Appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to be here and being able to demonstrate Ziplyne's capabilities and deep dive into it. So I'm going to start off with sharing my screen, go through a few slides, and then I'll go into the live demo. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Great. So as Colin was mentioning, we're a digital adoption platform. And so a digital adoption platform is a new type of technology that has just really come to light and really become important over the last few years. It's a software layer that is integrated on top of multiple applications to guide users through tasks and functions. So imagine any business process that you usually had to do before. Now you have in-app guidance along the way, instead of having to watch video tutorials, text documents, go through PDFs, job aids, quick resource guides. You have in-app guides that show you how to execute a business process, take you through the journey, and let you complete it at the end. So digital adoption platforms are meant to help companies scale these in-app guides on top of these multitude of applications when you're talking about multiple types of softwares as well as end users involved. Different types of employees using different applications and their experience level depending on how used to the different technology they are, whether it's a new technology, whether they're a power user, a seasonal user. There's all these different varieties or these different factors, and digital adoption platform encompasses the entire spectrum. So Ziplyne's mission is to bridge the gap between the end user and the digital interface they're working on by providing in-app guidance, support, and navigation so that the how becomes second nature. So a user comes to an application, they usually know what they want to do, they know why they need to do it, but the how is the missing piece. So Ziplyne fills that gap. And we are laser focused on creating a DAP or a digital adoption platform that is easy to implement and scale within an enterprise. Just a little bit of a background. We started in 2017. We have teams based in New Jersey and India, and we're a total team size of 15 people. So what we're really challenging companies to do is rethink their classroom-based training, their learning courses, their how-to videos, the way that they were delivering content for training and educating their user bases. That's what we're saying you need to re-strategize now with the new world based off of what we've experienced during COVID and post-COVID. And the new term that has come about is the flow of work. So how can you get the help that you need, the guidance, the necessary instructions or information in real time? You don't want to have to wait for IT help desk to get back to you. You don't want to submit a chat ticket. We're all in this real-time world now where we don't really switch off. So the expectation is, how can I get my answers and get my guidance even faster? So learning in the flow of work is that new term that's come about, and Ziplyne aligns as a digital adoption platform that solves and handles that goal as well. So you're becoming more efficient and productive at the time of need. So there's three solutions in Ziplyne, and then I'm going to go into the demonstration. There's a creator, which is a browser-based extension. It allows companies to create the in-app guidance directly on top of their platforms. There's a player that's either a browser-based extension or a JavaScript snippet that allows the end users to play back the in-app guides on top of the desired web application. And then there's an admin dashboard, which gives you end-to-end insights for your deployment, your customizations, your configurations, and much more functions and features that help you with scaling your Ziplyne deployment in your organization. Everything is, again, synced with the creator and player, so it all comes together as one unit. So I'm going to switch over now to the actual demonstration of the software. So I did a quick, we call these in-app guides zips as terminology. So you create zip lines on top of these softwares that take you from point to point, right? So I created a quick zip on top of Google Drive that shows a user how to go to the drive and then actually start to share a document and figure out what are the permissions that you can allow access to. So someone in your organization who, let's say, is responsible for training, who's responsible for operations, who knows the process and could be the subject matter expert, would be the person most likely in charge of creating this type of guidance, right? The end user is going to consume it. It could be anyone who needs that help. So if you see here on the right-hand side, there's a Z icon. That Z represents Zipline. It can be customized and configured to any type of icon that could educate a user for help. And if you click it, it slides out and it says interactive self-help zip guides. It gives you a welcome message. And then underneath it, you'll see that these are specific guides that you can play back as like a catalog. So if I wanted to start this guide, I would click it and it starts and it says click new. So these series of pop-ups have been customized based off of one, the process, but also the content that's put into these pop-ups are created by me, the subject matter expert. So when I click new, all I have to do is follow along, go to Google Docs. It navigates me to open up a new doc, and then it continues on the process. So name your document. So I'll say example, click next. Then it pops over here and it says click share. Then it comes here. Now I don't have to just add plain text. I can add video tutorials and other rich text that I've already collaborated on or used in the past. So I can put a YouTube video embedded directly.
An important skill is knowing how to share your Google Doc.
And this can be expanded into a separate window. And when I'm done with that, let's say I added someone, I can continue on the process and it's telling me what to do. So I'm going to change my settings and it's telling me, okay, here are my options, but I don't know what Google Drive permissions are like. So I'm going to click here and now I can get into a knowledge article that Google has hosted. So again, it's taking that existing content, but providing it that point of need, getting that real-time experience, and it really helps you understand where your user has to go and how they have to execute the task. So if I click back, now it says, congrats, I've completed the guide because I've executed the business process and I've created a document and I've just shared it with Ephraim. And my guide is complete. So that's a very simple example of how you took a business process that may be coming to your company where people are not familiar with creating documents, and that might be a ticket coming to your IT support desk. And from an operations perspective, now you've been able to educate your user base, but instead of having to deploy external resources or internal resources, you had one team member create a guide, and now that's universal crowdsourced knowledge that everyone can consume. So I want to pause there for any questions, and then I'm going to go into the next part of the demonstration.
Yeah, I'm a little bit curious what kind of permissions this extension needs, because a lot of places will consider Google in particular. I mean, I know you just use it as an example. It's a great example, but they'll consider it a fairly sensitive, like, internal site. So what kind of access is it being granted to these documents?
So it's not getting, it basically Zipline layers on top of the application. So as long as the permission is granted by Google Chrome, which is where it's hosted, it will be able to tag these elements of the creation process and also play back. So if you don't want it to be hitting on sensitive information, that's okay, because it's not tagging anything that's going to be stored on our server besides the HTML tag. We're not actually figuring out what users are typing into the documents. We're not scrubbing that data. It's just knowing that a document has been loaded. This was, let's say, an icon that needed to be tagged. It shows up that it knows that it's text color, and that's it. Or this is where the button is, but it doesn't scrape anything beyond that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, let's carry on with the demo, and then we'll save all of the questions to the end, Ryan. That's probably going to be the best flow for us.
Great. So going to another application that we're familiar with, Workday. Many companies use Workday. The challenge that they've seen with Workday adoption is a lot. We've been able to simplify and streamline that process as well. So if you see on this side, you have an extension. I'm going to log in with different credentials now. and you'll see a different set of guides that show up versus what I was just doing before on Google. So if you're thinking about enterprise-wide, this is how we're solving the problem for the entire scale versus just an application-to-application basis. So if you see here now, I have different guides according to Workday because it's recognized that domain. So let's do a request absence guide or a zip. So it finds the icon and it tells me to go through it. So I'm reviewing the section, enter any comments, and then I can click submit at the end. Here's you see a video has been hyperlinked and it's done. So that's the purpose of what you could see for Zipline. And you'll see that it took you through that process and helped you execute that business task. Now, if I go back here and I open it up, you'll notice that I have different guides to go through. So if I wanted to do a simple one that's not business process focused, this is just showing me an overview, right, of what each functionality does. What does this dashboard feature do? What do these modules do? So it's up to you how complex you want to make the process versus how simple you want to do it, because we've given you the platform that allows you to cater to both sides of the audiences, right? The power users that are going to be going through it, and then you have the seasonal that need to know some information, and then you have people who just need to know the basics. So you create the content and then you deliver it. So this is what the end user experience is like if you're playing it back. Now I'm going to go to what it looks like from the creator side so that you can see how easy it is and create these guides. So I'm flipping on the other extension that I have access to, and that's the creator. I'm going to refresh my page, and you'll notice that that yellow icon has disappeared. Now, when I open it up, I see this green icon, this purple icon, and I'm going to log in. So I'm logging in with my credentials as an admin. All right. And I'm going to say create zip, because that's what we want to do. I'm going to say Workday 101 with solve. You can give a description so that your users can find it easily when they're searching for it in the end user experience. So it allows you to catalog and customize that. So I could say this guide is useful for first-time users. I can give a primary category or tag, again, so that it can be filtered very easily. So it's more relevant and contextual and personalized. So I have options there that I can pick from, and I click create zip. So now all I got to do is map out the business process. So this one's going to be very simple. I'm not going to go through multiple pages. I'm just going to stay on the first page. So I click add step, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. I've tagged my steps. And now if you see here, as I hover over each of these, it's highlighting my selection. So what that means is I've tagged the right element, and now it's been stored and converted into the step-by-step guide. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save it and play it back. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Now I can fill in the content. My business process is mapped. I can go through and start to say things. So let's say, welcome. And then this is my title box, and this is my text box to further describe. Please go through this guide. Anything I want to say, I could say it. There's no limitation. Announcements. Spelled that wrong, so there's spell check too. And then I'm going to skip over. I'm just going to keep it very simple for the demonstration purpose. All right, so I'm going to click save, go back to the top. I'm going to play it back. So step 1. Here we go. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and step 5. So now I've been able to map out my business process, add content, and I can get a little bit fancier by going in what I showed you before and double clicking and adding rich text or stylizing and adding a hyperlink to a video or a PDF document, consuming my existing knowledge, right? So what a lot of companies ask us is, all right, this is great, it shows that it's very easy to create. What about updating, maintaining, scaling, right? The process is going to change. My developers are going to make changes to the underlying application. How easy is it for me to edit the guides? So what you can do is you can come back here, and all you have to do, if let's say the developer changed this type of element, you can reselect it by clicking this icon. And now you can go and get a broader frame, or you can tag something else depending on what that change might be, right? So here I'm going to tag this, and now that's reselected it to the welcome. Let's say I want to resequence the process because there have been changes in how the step-by-step should go about. So I can take this step number 3 and I can drag it to here, and now it's been adjusted, and I can drag it again. So I can always keep it up to date. So now apps is step number 1. So we give you that flexibility not only in the creation, but also in the editing process. And those are the 2 main requests that you get when you're trying to scale content or scale something in an organization. When your application is evolving so rapidly, Workday's doing these releases, and then your company is also introducing new releases and new functionalities, then you can always keep these guides up to date. So with this in mind, we went ahead and we built, because that's a big concern for organizations, I've built 100 of these. How easy is it for us to monitor? So anytime that the element, the underlying application element changes and it realizes that there's a mismatch, we actually are monitoring that and we flag it. So it gives a flag alert to the person who created the guide, and then it tells them this specific step is now broken or missing. So whereas before with your video tutorials and your text documents, you launch things, but you don't know if the underlying application changes. Now you don't know how many videos will be impacted by that change, right? Because it's not sitting on top of that same exact product. In this case, because we're mapped to the HTML, we know that if this changes, all right, that impact has 10 guides that are going to be affected. And based off of that, you know how much time it will take for your organization to then make those changes, but you can do it in a streamlined fashion so that you're not having your end users get the end result of saying, oh my God, these guides have been outdated for like 3 weeks, or I'm going through this, I'm playing it back, but the experience is definitely not what it shows in the screenshot or in the documentation here. And they get very confused. And that obviously affects the end user experience. So this is from the creation side that I showed. And the last piece that I want to highlight is the dashboard. So if I go into my dashboard here, I get a view of my analytics, and I can say, how many users are going through these guides? Where are they dropping off? What is the distribution of completed, incompleted, timed out? Timed out means that they were playing something back, but then they got distracted and they moved to another tab, etc. So if I click submit, it's going to regenerate this chart. And I'm going to go into my analytics, and I can actually now filter down. Let's say I did 1 month frequency and I chose all users. Now I can see in the incompleted zips, my distribution is the following. So let's say I wanted to see Workday overview. If I click here, you'll see that there's 2 users. So we're getting the usernames, if they're logged, of how many times are they actually going through these guides. So Bill Short did it once and Dan did it once, and their average time spent was 18.8 seconds. So we're getting all that data that currently before was not collected from your video tutorials, your text documents, your PDFs. It's hard to know that level of engagement. And we're being able to track that because we're getting the step-by-step analytics. So I get the full aggregate level, but then I can go down and say, oh, most users are spending 22 seconds on step number 4. Either that's a really complicated part of the process that I need to improve. I need to improve the content. I need to change the underlying user experience, or there's something else that we need to figure out. And then they're dropping off because there's 5 steps in the zip, but they're mainly making it to step number 4 and that's it. Why is that? So it really starts the conversation a little bit further, which is currently not being collected by a lot of training teams, L&D teams, product teams, because they're not getting this element by element or this step-by-step analysis. They're just getting application level data, but nothing that gives them real-time effect when your user's looking for help. So that's the very basic demonstration of those 3 solutions. I can definitely go into way more, and there's a lot of functionality out there that we've included, but this is the core that you need to know in order to take Zipline to the next level in an organization. And what I think is most, some of the most popular questions that we get in order to deploy this in a company.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for the run through and showing us the dashboard creator and the presenter side. So I've got all of the tags ready, tags right. I know our background side chat, which goes on during these presentations, is very much on the security theme side. I don't know if any one of our SaaSOps professionals wants to ask a specific question. Who's going to unmute and speak?
Yeah, I'll ask. So yeah, we looked at the permissions required from the extension. It's like everything on the active tab. Seems reasonable given what the service is doing. Just wondering how you assure customers that you're being responsible with that permission.
Yeah, we are, and we state that when we give them access to the extensions, we tell them that it's following the permissions that are set from Google Chrome, and we give them that in documentation format as well, and we give them the hyperlinks, and then they agree to that when they sign the contract with us. So we are very transparent about that knowledge, and they tell us, okay, that's fine. We just want to make sure that you're not tracking other things that are like, could be more Big Brother-like, because there is a concern when you have any type of extension that is it doing anything in the background that you might not be, that it's not intended to do.
Right, so it's only got permissions to view the sites that we set up on it. So if somebody has the Chrome extension installed and we have a workflow for Google Drive, Workday, whatever, Bamboo HR, you would only view that information to run the zips. But if we went to, our Chase banking site or our own personal Facebook, your Chrome extension wouldn't pull any of that information in.
No, it wouldn't. So we have to register all the domains with an organization. So when we set up a company, we say, hey, company, what domains do you want to have registered under your org? They'll tell us that list. They'll input it themselves. And then those are the ones that the specific widgets will show up with basically once the configurations are set. Everything else, and they can put their own exceptions in, will be blacked out.
So you're only looking at the domain and then stopping if it doesn't match?
Yes.
That domain registration that you're talking about, is that on Zipline side, or is that just in the configuration for the extension on the Google Workspace side?
No, it's on our side. So it reads it from the API. It tells you which configurations have been set for which company, and then pulls that information to pair it. The extension is just saying, all right, if I know that call is met, then I will show up with these specific results. Like I will show the guide or the widget on these specific domains because it matches.
So theoretically, if we just wanted an extra layer of assurance on that, you'd have to register the domains with Zipline, but then could go into the Chrome configuration and just explicitly say only allow on these sites, and then it just would otherwise be disabled.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Are we installing those? Oh, sorry. Are we installing those extensions not from the Chrome Web Store specifically, but through our own Chrome Web Store? It looks at least like this, that you don't publicly have the entire, especially the entire user extension on the Web Store.
Yeah. So it depends what model the company who signs up with us is on. If they want to have that exclusive access where they're going to control it from their web store, then we can allow them that flexibility, which then they can manage it through group policy. Otherwise, they are welcome to use the model that we already have on our version of it. We can make those exceptions, but that's on a custom pricing plan. But we do have that flexibility, but it just requires more work from both sides because the admin has to set it up from their end. And then we have to tailor a package that says, okay, this is for that specific company, and they have to submit it to their store.
Oh, that's awesome. So I can have my private extension to and even more have the insurance that this is just doing what it's supposed to be doing. That's a good model in my book. So thank you for that. In relation to that, SOC 2 ISO certifications, what do you have?
At the moment, since we're bootstrapped as a startup, we don't have those certifications, but we're working on growing our customer base and then being able to acquire those. As of now, in the enterprises that we've been working with, it hasn't been something that has said, all right, this is a roadblocker for a solution like ours. And we've been able to justify it or rationalize it with why.
Awesome, thanks.
Is that custom app something that's been frequently set up for customers?
Oh, yeah, it really depends on, I mean, they have to give the specific request.
Have you done it before?
Yes.
Okay.
Rome, any timeline on those security pieces? I'll give you the example why. I was thinking, I don't work for Gusto anymore, but so I'm not a representative, I'm not asking, but
Sure.
When I worked for them before, I could see how this would be like really handy if I could get the ball rolling on it. And the moment it goes to security, they're going to put the kibosh on this because of the lack of those pieces there. And the reason why is if we're doing an internal using this product for internal uses, the internal customer service portal that admins use to help our customers, that there definitely has complications and it would really benefit from something like this. But the actual data that your platform would be able to see visibly is outrageously protected on so many levels, including possibly even HIPAA requirements. So would love to see a timeline on that if I was going to start mentioning you as a word of mouth recommendation.
Sure. I will say though, with the organizations that we've worked with thus far, we have shown them what we're taking back to our servers, what is being communicated back, and they haven't been concerned because we're not scraping data that's actually being user inputted, right? Like we'll know, if I go back to this example, we'll know that it's a pay tab. We'll know that it says pay because that's just exposed through basic HTML. If I do inspect element, basically whatever I'm getting through inspect element is what Zipline is scanning. So it's not that I'm going into their API calls or anything like that to get that information. It's just listed here. So what you mentioned, it might say that like incident 103, we'll be able to read incident 103, but we're not going to be able to scan all the inputs that are there. We'll know what the field is. We just won't know what that input is because we wanted to be clear on that. Otherwise, it kind of is very intrusive because yes, that could help from a data gathering perspective to help you with optimization, but then there's a lot of security concerns that come up. So we just decided to stop at that level of this is a text field. We'll know that that's a text field, but I don't know if someone wrote Brian in or Dominic in or Caleb in or Roman. I don't know that information.
Okay, because you programmatically choose not to look. Is that
yes.
How it is? Okay. Yeah, I know Gusto goes so far as to consider bad actors too. No offense, but it happens.
Yes, sure.
So if there's a bad actor somewhere on your side, what could it possibly do? And we take that into account as well. But going back to the original question, timeline on some of those security pieces?
Timeline for, if we're talking about the SOC requirements, it would probably be around 6 months.
Okay. Yeah, actually that's pretty good. If you said like 5 years, I'd be a little concerned, but okay.
Yeah, on previous calls, there's been a lot of focus on the SOC 2, and when we had John from Decibel Partners, it is becoming the standard that the companies, like ours are all asking for, but startups seem to be trying to get from their initial creation so that they hit the ground running and pass, as Brian says, all of those security requirements. Because this is great until it gets to the security ops team and who say no.
The other thing I do want to mention is that the platform itself is evolving. So if there are parts of the application, like for example, the industry is also evolving, that RPA is becoming a big focus, right? Robotic process automation. So for where I see this helping the SaaSOps persona is you might necessarily not be the ones building out the content, but you'll highlight which processes should be hyper-focused by the training teams, by the L&D, by the product teams, because the tool that you use that you're going to deploy is only as good as the adoption that it gets, right? So that's where I see the SaaSOps hat coming in, that you can say, all right, we know that we're getting these tickets 10 times a day. Let's prioritize these ones because that's where the real value can be shown. And it's very easy. Once you deploy this, you get a 20 to 30% reduction in that ticket because you're giving it up front to the user. So I just wanted to clarify that because it's not a traditional SaaSOps lens, but I'm seeing that the digital adoption platform can be introduced to that persona and also find value.
I can imagine some departments that aren't on the right hand, not talking to the left hand departments, would be no fault of Zipline at all. But if this would be used as kind of a backhanded UX feedback to the product team.
I can see.
Just because I would do that doesn't mean you have to call me out.
What I can see it being a great use for onboarding and helping with those security questions that people have to, or the security requirements people have to go through, the MFA, all the other setups that they would have to do when they sign into their account initially. I like the dashboard idea you said, where if it notices that the underlying site has changed, that's often the problem that we have is you create a PDF for how to do Google two-step verification, and then Google slightly changed the process and they move something around and you have to redo the whole thing again. You said that the notices of that go to the person who created the zip.
Yep.
Is there sort of any centralized, what's the centralized admin part of it for us administrators, or is it sort of a per creator admin portal?
You can see on this view, this is the zip monitor feature, and that's the module that you're referencing, Colin. Basically, it gives you that insight into the specific incidents that are occurring, what URL it's happening on. But if you go here, you can set the configurations on a per zip basis of what team members, what types of team, what email addresses need to be alerted for those specific things. So we have it from the top down in the sense that the admin decides what creators are going to be responsible for which specific guides as the point of contact. But you can also do it on a universal settings perspective to say that this individual or these few individuals will get the alerts regardless, right? So it's a universal setting, and then you have a per zip. So it's based off of that type of workflow that then you can make the necessary adjustments. Because Brian, for example, might be the super expert on this one process, right? And if anything goes down, he should be responsible to fix it, not necessarily the admin. So a lot of that
I was on board until you just said I was responsible for it. Now, wait a minute.
Well, tickets go to Brian.
You're just accountable. Yeah.
All right.
All right. That's good. I got one other question.
Sure.
Obviously, there's 6 of us on this call. We're all using Google Workspace. We all don't want to be creating zips for how to do MFA. Is there a zip repository, a zip recipe book, a zip community, predefined zips? Can we share zips? Can I use zips in any other form of a sentence?
I love it. I think that, so the answer to that is absolutely there is, but I'll answer it in a few ways. We already have a Zipster community that's set up where ideas are being exchanged and stuff like that, but those are for our customers. And based off of the content with their permission, then we choose the best practices of those guides for the applications that they're building it on top of. And we ask them their permission to share the skeletons or predefined zips, pre-ready zips, so that you can get hit the ground started. So we do have some already available for Google. But you'd have to just tell us like what processes you're looking for, and then we'll see if anyone else has built that. But we have packages for ServiceNow, for Oracle, for Workday, for SAP, predefined 10 to 20 zips that are on the most common processes. We've looked at their help documentation, the knowledge base articles from their websites, and been able to collaborate and take that information and then transform it into the in-app guide. So we already have those packages created. It just comes out based off of your need and requirements.
Can some of these zips be accessible to the public? Like if I wanted to hassle Dominic's website and just publish a zip for it and have all kinds of information about his website, if I wanted that.
At the moment, no. We haven't gone that far from a complete community public facing aspect, but that's an interesting thought.
All right, I think we have one more question asked on behalf of one of our regular attendees who's not able to attend today. Who would like to ask our traditional question? You're muted, Dominic. It's all you, Dominic. You're still muted. 2021.
I'm still muted.
There it is.
I'm definitely not good at this tech stuff. Why am I here? Anyway, I'm gonna ask Rose's question because it's Rose who I always ask the pricing question, and that's something that I'm curious too. What's your pricing model?
Sure. So as you can imagine, because this is really dependent on the underlying technologies that you're using with an organization, we price per user per month per application. So we usually bundle it according to the number of applications that are being used in an organization, and the user count is the main trigger. So based off of that, then we come up with the plan, and we tell you when we're talking about enterprise level, then you're looking at different packages because they could have so many different variables that we have to take into account. So we have to go through the traditional route of going through the custom pricing model, but that's the framework that we use: per user, per month, per app.
Active or total users?
Active.
I guess for precision of language, active in the Zipline application or active in the organization?
Oh, okay. Great question. So active in the applications, the underlying application itself.
Okay.
So active in Workday and
Yes.
active in Slack. So, and if I'm not active in Workday and only active, that's a brilliant pricing model.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I have a question about the detecting a change on the underlying site.
Mm-hmm.
Can you configure that to just completely disable when there's a change detected and wait for a review? I'm just thinking about the user experience if you happen to be someone who stumbles into it before the admin has gotten to update it.
If that's the case, the application can detect that and it can disable it. It's not there at the moment. What we have right now is that it just skips on to the next available step on that page. So it looks for the next thing. So for example, if I'm playing this one back called Zip Monitor, and I go to the step 2, and then I go to step 3, this is what the total experience looks like. Let's say I move or I get rid of pay, and now I play back that same zip. So let's say Workday changed. It's going to look for the next available step on that page, and it's going to move to career. So it has that logic, but what you're mentioning is that it entirely disables. That's something that we can definitely look into. We don't have that at the moment.
Yeah, I can see why too, because if some of those pieces are related to each other, like there's a storyline that you need to follow in order to accomplish a task. If one of those pieces disappear, then you're missing a piece of the story.
It could cause more confusion than it's worth. Yeah.
Creative allowance. Yeah, this is also a way that Dominic could just change one thing on his website and completely shut down my public. I'm still working out.
Never-ending struggle. Yeah.
Now, Zipline, when you do get your SOC 2, please do go for it. The tradition is to also then come up with SOC swag to be able to send out a bunch of socks to everybody. So I'll be looking forward to those as well.
Sounds good.
All right, excellent. I think we come to the end of the question round. Romy, if you could unshare your screen, then we can see everybody in all their full gallery glory. And let's go around and give our opinions of the product. Hypothetically, if we were sharks, we would say yes. We'd all start a bidding war if we were gonna buy it, and what our stake would be. Obviously, this is all hypothetical. These are no contractual POs and invoices will be sent, but we're going to give our feedback. Who would like to go first? I'm gonna pick people. I'm gonna go for Andy. I'm going to start on my screen. Andy Yates.
I've been sitting here pretty quietly today. So I have a whole stack of questions and thoughts and comments. My biggest sort of query is around the underlying model, business model, essentially, and like there's sort of other people in the same space, Pendo and Newline and others who focus very much on like going to the application vendors and getting them sort of built out first. And you seem to be focusing more on the customers and looking, the strength here then is in that sort of cross-application workflow, which sounds really cool, but then the pricing model is like, it's going to cost you extra per extra application you add on. And so I'm like, well, I don't know how that all fits together. So that's the big thing I was thinking about. And then the other thing I was trying to figure out was sort of what's the workflow when you get this at scale. So, I can see, creating a zip and creating another zip and creating another zip. But when I've got, as we have 10,000 people in the organization and we're thinking about lots and lots of zips that essentially reflect the business processes for the entire organization. When one of those changes a little bit, then how do we think about governance, and how do we think about governance when, how do we, Dominic's putting in the chat actually, like how do we crowdsource when things need to change, and how do we crowdsource this is how things are done here in an effective way and put governance over the top of that? I don't quite see it at the moment. And I'd love to see it, but I have a bit of skepticism, I think.
Anybody else? Alex, do you want to go next? Oh, Brian, do you want to go? You put your hand up. I'll let you go.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, kind of maybe an open-ended question, and forgive me, I did kind of show up late here, so there's a chance I missed a feature here. If you look at Colin's face, he's going to rail me for this one later. I could see a use case also for some of the companies I worked for in the past where they actually have internal trainings, but this wouldn't necessarily be available and open during product time at their own desk. I understand that's one use case, but actual controlling an actual training segment where you actually kind of walk them through specific pieces there. I guess maybe it's an open-ended question of like, can this be catered to a controlled segment of where like an administrator can control how far along they go along with the training segment. I can see a lot of use case for internal trainings, product training, and pieces like that internally to be walked through with an administrator presenting at the same time.
Great. Alex, then?
Yeah, it looks incredibly useful. I have similar concerns around internal processes and how to manage and reflect those. But yeah, I mean, it looks like a great product. It does what I'd expect it to do.
Thank you.
Caleb, Coy?
Yeah, actually, I like this idea for a few reasons. I mean, one, because it's the good step-by-step documentation without having to leave the app that you're in or like go to a different tab, log into another service, whatever. Like it doesn't take you out of that hands-on experience and have you bounce it back and forth. I like that, unlike a lot of the kind of standard tutorials built into a lot of SaaS applications, it's not a required thing that like the UI forces you into. The end user has to like actively start this process. I think that that's very cool because maybe I don't want it the very first time I use it. Maybe the 300th time I'm like, you know what? I really don't understand how this works, and I never bothered to figure it out before. And then of course, a lot of the smaller places that I've worked at, anything web or software or tooling just in general, it's always been, well, IT would train us on how to do that, right? But like, no, you don't have to. Like the people who actually understand the application can be delegated out to own the step-by-step creation, and I appreciate that. I definitely have the same concerns expressed over, would this pass a security review at any of the places that I've worked where I wasn't the main decision maker. As of right now, definitely not, but it sounds like maybe in the future with the compliance work that you're doing. So definitely look forward to keeping an eye on this.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Caleb. Randy?
Yeah, so what was it? I think last week I first bumped into a product doing something like this, or at least a company is trying to do something just like this. I saw it, I was like, oh, this is great. This is super exciting. Like could be applied so many places. They demoed it on top of Salesforce. I was just like, oh, this could be great for the sales team. Promptly forgot who the hell the damn vendor was. I was like, oh, it's one that we already have, and they're building this out. This is going to be great. Don't remember who it is now. But what I will say that became more interesting here was the cross-application workflow being really kind of interesting for an IT onboarding. And then that plays into the classroom thing. We're not totally per se, or I'm not, because I'm the IT manager, I'm not totally per se and willing to give up on all parts of the in-person part of it. Yep. Certainly would love to speed up the IT onboarding, simplify it, have a lot less that I have to do with it, cover everything that really needs to be covered. But it might be kind of interesting to have some way to interact with them, chuck some units at them, do some initial stuff here, then please complete these, or different ways to do it. But even just in that initial session, going between different apps could be really kind of interesting for a whole full stitched together workflow. It goes right on through. And have to do some interesting ones with like email invitations, and looking for the element of the email would be kind of intriguing to see if I could achieve. But this could be really kind of interesting, completely separate from whatever the heck that tool was that still isn't out yet. I mean, they were just barely demoing that this is something they want to do. So I can't even tell you who that competition is.
If they're watching, maybe they can leave it in the comments and we can follow up with it later.
There we go.
Dominic?
Yeah, so I asked a couple of weeks ago in our general group chat, I asked exactly this question: how can I solve a problem like this? Basically, Google had an extension for their own products in the past, and I was trying to just replicate it because it can't be that hard. If you want to sell it, obviously it comes 20x harder. But if you're putting it in your own hosting, and maybe that is something that you could work on. But yeah, that's quite funny that this comes back now here in a way that makes it productized and easy to buy if security concerns are alleviated. So quite funny. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. And give you my thoughts. I think, as I said earlier, I can certainly see this working for onboarding, for helping users, use whatever product, whether it's Google Workspace or Office 365 for the first time in a business environment. A lot of people are used to using those sort of kind of products in a personal environment, not necessarily used to using it in a business environment, doing sharing documents and viewing other people's calendars and booking meeting rooms and scheduling things. I think that would be very, very useful. I do wonder or worry about its longevity, because I think it could be very useful during the onboarding process, or if something changes, but I don't think it would be regularly used. I will mention it to some of the people in our organization that do manage training, if it's something that they want to use, because we do have a very large internal process and application that people have to sort of do an internal certification on. And I think this might really, really help improve that and streamline it, rather than having loads of PDFs to look at, because I find it very frustrating to be sent, a PowerPoint presentation to go through when you're trying to use a new application. Nothing ever lines up. I think certainly for certain markets, as we've said, it's very, very promising. So, Rome, we thank you. It's been a very lucky episode. No gremlins apart from me stumbling and forgetting what to say at the beginning. Obviously, I should have rebooted myself. I had a little bit of a frame buffering problem there, trying to get words out of my brain. Been a very long week here. But yeah, thank you, Rome, for joining us for episode 13 of SolveTank.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet everyone. Thanks so much.
Awesome.